The root of the word courage is cor, from the Latin car, from which we get cardiac, of the heart. And this word courage first began to appear in the early 1300s. And in its earliest form, this word courage meant to speak one's mind by engaging one's heart. Yeah, it's a good one to remember. Nostrovia, chin chin, cheers, these are words we lift and drink. Snow is a word that disappears. Rain, they say, has tiny hands. Time is a word associated with grains of sand. There is a difference between fiction and frisson, paradox and contradiction. Charity gives her mercy away and finds herself in a state of grace. The word fear lives in a cage. It rattles. It freezes every time the turning page. Impatience stands with its hands on its hips. A grudge, I suspect, just wants to be kissed on the lips. It was not beauty that launched 1,000 ships. Greed has no time for compromise. Brief is a word describing your time on earth. The mystic is deeply interested in how we use words. There's collateral damage and friendly fire. There's presence and there's the live wire. The word daughter is bathed in warm water. The word son is wedded to war. Nobody knows what revenge is for. Grief, they say, is the price we pay for love. Joy is a word so sacred it aches. Some say there's no such thing as a blank slate. There are few words more sublime than once upon a time. So I often find myself saying that poetry might just be the answer to all that ails us. And I realized that that sounds like a pretty ludicrous claim. It might sound naive, but I say it because I believe it. And I say it because, well, not just because poetry is poetry, but because there's nothing like a poem for changing, literally changing our physiology and therefore our state of mind. We call this, in many traditions, we call this the sacred pause. That opportunity to slow down, that opportunity to take a breath, that moment we have where we can actually soften the furrow in our brow, soften the jaw, the shoulders. We call this sacred because by slowing down like this, what happens is that we put ourselves in a position to receive, which is tricky for we Americans. In a position to receive the offering. And when I say offering, I don't just mean the poem at hand, although there's that. But I also mean the offerings that are presenting themselves to us all day long, whether it's the sparrow at the window, the sky at dusk, a spider web. Yes, I travel across Colorado singing the praises of poetry. I go into university campuses and high schools, elementary schools, hospitals, wellness centers, libraries, writing conferences, extolling the virtues of poetry because poetry changed everything about my own life. So I was, believe it or not, a painfully shy child. I was in fact terrified to speak. I was terrified of being vulnerable. I was terrified of revealing my ignorance or my sensitivities. Whatever it was, I was terrified to speak. And because of this, I was 23 or 24 when I made my first real friend. And let me tell you, she was not terrified to speak. We taught together, and she would stand up at faculty meetings and say what everybody else was afraid to say. She stood up for students, for teachers. She was always in service to something bigger than herself. She wasn't afraid to laugh. She could cry easily. She was a force of nature. She was a life force. And she and I made a very unlikely pair until one day she was quite suddenly killed in a terrible car accident. She left behind 3 daughters, and nobody knew what to say to them. Nobody even knew how to be with them. That's how difficult it was. I can remember going home from the hospital, and aside from dealing with my own loss and shock and grief, feeling a terrible sense of uselessness that I couldn't do anything for these girls. So I pulled a book from the bookshelf and opened up a book at random, which is something I recommend you do every day. Open to a poem at random. And the poem I opened to spoke to exactly what was happening. It was a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay, and it was about this, a really powerful, young, vivacious life suddenly snuffed, suddenly gone. And the poem was very short. It went like this. My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night. But my friends, and my foes, it gives a lovely light. Now, please understand this poem did not take away the pain of loss. But what it did was open up a door to an actual conversation about who their mom was. These girls were so happy to hear this poem. What we were experiencing is something that has happened in life before. Suddenly, we were able to have a real conversation. Yes, it took a terrible loss for me to recognize that poetry was the guiding star I'd been looking for all my life. Yes, it took a terrible loss for me to summon my own courage. At the very least, poetry will keep you honest. Poetry will never let you forget that there is no escaping change. Just so you know, close to the chest is close to the bone. Just so you know, there's not much growth in your comfort zone. Just so you know, the pen is no mightier than the soul. Just so you know, the guarded heart keeps the song at bay. Just so you know, the wind carries your words away. Just so you know, your bliss is the sister to your pain. Just so you know, the lotus is married to the mud. Just so you know, to listen deeply is to love. Just so you know, everything is an inside job. Form a relationship with poetry, and you will learn that no feeling is final. This very word emotion reminds us that feelings are in motion. It's when they get stuck that we get ourselves in trouble. Something else that's unique about poetry is that poetry teaches, demonstrates, embodies the importance of language and how we use it. Language is a profoundly important influence on your life, and you may not even know it. Language informs your thoughts, your perceptions, your relationships, your very ways of being in the world. To read a little bit of poetry every day is to learn over and over and over again to change your perspective. We humans are a really strange breed. We think we know a lot more than we do. We get really sure, and we get attached to our certainty. We stop paying attention. We stop listening. Poetry will never pretend that you don't have an inner life. In fact, some of us believe that poetry presents the bridge between the inner life and the outer life. So yes, I sing the praises of poetry, because poetry has persisted since the beginning, uniting us in times of celebration, consoling us in times of desolation, surprising us when we didn't know we needed to be surprised. What you thought you lost along the way hangs in the air like a prayer. May you find your way home. May the doors swing open wide from the out and the inside. Under a wide open sky, may you lose, may you find, may you know in the core of your weathered soul, your old and your new sign. May every stranger on the path become the one who stopped to hang something you thought you lost in the air by a thread, like an ancient pagan prayer, like some kind of warm-eyed elder guardian was standing there. Thank you all so much. Thank you.